As you guys can tell, I'm trying to do as much transfer portal content as humanly possible right now, and today I'm going to try to predict where some of the 10 biggest quarterback names in the portal are going to end up. Yeah, the video is self-explanatory, but before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and make some predictions for these big-time quarterback portal kids. Okay, so this is actually pretty difficult to do, as I've been scouring Twitter, the internet, and random forums to try to figure out where some of these 10 players are going to end up going. The first guy I want to start out with is Malachi Singleton. A lot of Arkansas fans are currently freaking out, as the former big-time recruit entered the transfer portal a couple days ago, and many think he's a future NFL talent. Coming out of high school, he was listed as a top 400 recruit and the number 26 quarterback in the class of 2023, and Singleton had a couple of moments at Arkansas. He was obviously the backup to Taylon Green this season, but he would have to come in against Tennessee and actually led them to that upset victory over the Volunteers. In total, Singleton threw for 358 yards with 1 touchdown and also had 3 interceptions. Okay, so Singleton's obviously a big deal in the portal, but I can't just pick a random school out of a hat and say he's going to go there. If I had to make some sort of prediction based on some sort of logic, I'm going to say he ends up at TCU. I know you're probably shaking your head because they already have Josh Hoover, but the same guy who recruited Malachi Singleton to Arkansas was Kendall Briles, who's currently the offensive coordinator at TCU. It seems like a lot of players follow former coaches, and I really have no idea if he's going to go there, but if I had to make some sort of prediction based on something, I would say that Singleton ends up at TCU. Again, I have no idea, but that's my prediction. Honestly, one of the most underrated names in the portal is Devon Dampier. Coming out of Saguaro High School in Arizona, Dampier was listed as a 3-star recruit and the number 83 quarterback in the class of 2023. He didn't really have many offers, but would eventually decide to go over to New Mexico. He has started the last 2 years for the Lobos, and after being a backup in 2023, Dampier broke out in 2024. He ended up throwing for 2,768 yards with 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, but he also did a ton of damage on the ground. He ran for nearly 1,200 yards and 19 scores, and I believe he was a top 3 quarterback in terms of rushing yards, and is one of the few quarterbacks in the last 15 years to pass for over 2,500 yards and run for over 1,000. That is pretty elite territory, so Dampier decided to enter the portal and is currently listed as a top 10 prospect. Well, where's he going to go? I think he's going to end up going to Utah. Utah decided to hire his offensive coordinator from New Mexico there, and with them probably giving up on Cam Rising and none of the other backups looking all that good, I think Dampier's going to end up going to Utah, and he's good enough to be a Power 4 starter, but would still need some development. So yeah, my pick is the Utes. It has been tough sledding for Florida International Football over the last couple of years, but on the bright side, they have 2 of the bigger names in the transfer portal. Wide receiver Eric Rivers is probably going to go to a big-time program, and quarterback Keon Jenkins is probably going to go to another big-time program as a quarterback. He ended up going to Miami Central High School, but was listed as the number 76 quarterback in the country and was a part of the class of 2023. Jenkins would end up playing a lot in 2023 as a true freshman, throwing for 2,400 yards with 11 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. He also ran for 6 more scores on the ground. Jenkins returned as the starter in 2024, throwing for 2,600 yards, with this time 22 touchdowns and 8 picks, and then 2 scores on the ground. Jenkins is one of the better group of 5 quarterbacks in the country, and with his pretty incredible athleticism, he's seen as a Power 4 player. According to research, it looks like both Houston and Louisville are going after Keon Jenkins, but I'm going to end up saying that Jenkins goes over to Houston, as Coach Fritz needs a quarterback, and I think Jenkins fills in better there than he would at Louisville. Plus, I already have another guy going to Louisville later in the video. What's crazy is you guys have no idea how difficult it is to find this information, as in order to get to 10 guys and make decent predictions, I kind of have to make a loose connection here. This guy is Brady Allen. I predicted in my last couple of videos that he would enter the transfer portal, and it's for good reason. At 6'6", Brady Allen was Mr. Football in the state of Indiana, and he ended up going to Gibson Southern High School, where he put up crazy numbers. He had 4,200 passing yards as a senior and 149 touchdowns in his career, and he'd end up going to Purdue. After that didn't work out, he followed Jeff Brom over to Louisville, but the last 2 years, Allen has sat on the pine. He's done absolutely nothing, so he entered the portal for a second time, and I'm going to make a crazy prediction. Maybe he goes back to Purdue. The Boilermakers already lost Hudson Card, and both of their quarterbacks Ryan Brown and Marcos Davila transferred away. Allen's already familiar with West Lafayette, it's in-state, and he could get a chance to start right away, and that's something he definitely wants to do, as he's probably sick of sitting on the bench. I'm not quite sure if it'll happen, but I'm going to make my prediction that Brady Allen goes back to the Boilermakers. Okay, so for Anthony Colandrea, it kind of started out as half of a joke and then half legit, as I predict he's going to end up going to Notre Dame. The 3-star recruit from Florida ended up taking off as a true freshman last year when Tony Muskett got hurt, and Colandrea came back this season but was sort of ruined by Tony Elliott. He threw for 2,100 yards and 13 touchdowns and had moments of brilliance and moments of complete disaster. As I was looking for where Anthony Colandrea will go in the portal, I found a decent amount of articles that say he should go to Notre Dame. Before I even searched his name, I made the joke that he should go to Notre Dame because every year they take an ACC quarterback rental, but apparently there is some legitimacy there. I'm not quite sure if it'll actually happen, as Notre Dame already has CJ Carr, Kenny Minchey, and Stephen Jelly on the roster, but let's just go ahead and say it, Anthony Colandrea is going to end up at Notre Dame. Up next, we need to talk about Thomas Castellanos. At one point, he was seen as one of the top quarterbacks in the country, but eventually Thomas Castellanos would settle in as a 3-star recruit and would spend 1 year at UCF, starting 1 game. He became the backup at Boston College in 2023, but halfway through the first game would take over. He became the first quarterback in school history to pass for over 2,000 yards and run for over 1,000, but he struggled with turnovers mightily. Going into 2024, Castellanos was seen as a breakout candidate, but he kind of struggled. He only had 1,300 yards, but ended up having 18 passing touchdowns and then ran for 1 more score on the ground. Very odd numbers. Castellanos decided to enter the transfer portal early, and it sparked some controversy, and right now, many are linking him to Florida State. Obviously, Luke Kromenhoek is the guy that Florida State hopes to develop in the future, but Thomas Castellanos is a guy who can both run and pass, has starting experience, and is from the state of Florida, so some think that he could end up at Florida State, and that's going to ultimately be my prediction. Okay, so up next we need to talk about Kaden Salter. At one point, Salter was a top 75 recruit coming out of high school and was seen as the next great quarterback at Tennessee. Unfortunately, he got into some issues off the field, and Salter would never play a game for Tennessee and would transfer before the season even started. He then would take over from Malik Willis while he was at Liberty, and Salter would have his best season in 2023. He ended up throwing for nearly 2,900 yards and 32 touchdowns and led the Flames to a terrific season. Sadly, in 2024, Salter would fall off, only throwing for 1,900 yards and 15 touchdowns. Salter is now looking for a new destination as he entered the portal and is seen as an immediate plug-and-play starter at a Power 4 team. Based on the research I've done, it seemingly is going to come down to 2 schools. It looks like both Syracuse and Indiana both want Salter really bad, but in my opinion, I think he's going to end up at Indiana. I'm not quite sure what Kyle McCord is going to do yet, but if he stays, why the heck would Salter go there when he has 1 year of eligibility left? Indiana is guaranteed to lose starting quarterback Curtis Rourke, and with what Indiana just did with Coach Cignetti, Salter would get an opportunity to start probably right away, and hopefully take advantage of the Indiana effect right now. Yes, they did lose offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri to UCLA, but Indiana is still an appealing destination, and is currently one of the hottest teams in the country in terms of momentum. My prediction is Salter goes to IU. Up next, we have another huge name in Miller Moss. Moss was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, and came into USC alongside Jackson Dart. Moss would wait his time at USC, as in his first 3 years he would barely play, at least until the Holiday Bowl. He ended up throwing for 6 touchdowns against the Louisville Cardinals, and this sparked the Miller Moss hype train. Ultimately, he'd throw for 2,600 yards and 18 touchdowns this year, but due to the team not winning, Lincoln Riley decided to bench him in favor of Jaden Mayava, who was a little bit more dynamic, and Moss will now enter the portal and is seen as a top 5 transfer, and arguably the best transfer quarterback in the portal right now. According to most sources, Miller Moss is down to both Mizzou and Louisville, as he will visit both schools. Honestly, even as a Mizzou fan, I think Miller Moss is going to end up at Louisville, as I think he perfectly fits what Jeff Brom's been trying to do with guys like Jack Plummer and Tyler Shuck, and Moss will be the next plug-and-play player there. Also, I say he's going to go to Louisville because the next guy I think is going to Mizzou is Connor Weigman. Honestly, as a Mizzou fan, I would rather have Miller Moss than Weigman, but Weigman has more time and potentially more potential than he does. After becoming a 5-star recruit out of Cypress, Texas, Weigman would start on and off his first 2 years as he was playing the end of his freshman season in 2022 and then the start of 2023 before his injury. 2024 was a complete disaster for Weigman as he'd end up playing terrible against Notre Dame and eventually was benched in favor of Marcel Reed. Honestly though, Weigman has plenty of potential, and for that reason alone will get another opportunity at a big-time program. Being put in new scenery with a new coach and a new system could really help him out, and right now, according to all my research, Weigman has been linked to the SEC, and a lot of people think he's going to end up at Mizzou. Again, we don't really know any of this stuff until a player actually commits or lays out visits, so it's all hypothetical, but I'm going to say that Weigman ends up going to Mizzou. Okay, so the final guy we're to talk about is Jackson Arnold. He ended up going to Denton Guyer High School and put up crazy numbers while he was there, and was supposed to be the next big thing coming to Oklahoma as a top 10 recruit. Arnold started in their bowl game against Arizona, and it looked like there was still some development needed. This year, Arnold ended up being terrible, as he threw for 1,400 yards with 12 touchdowns and 3 more scores on the ground, but was benched against Tennessee, was benched on and off for Michael Hawkins Jr., and then threw the game away against Mizzou by way of a late fumble. It looked like Arnold was put in the wrong system this year and needs a fresh start, but based on his high school pedigree, his moments of brilliance, and his just pure potential, he will definitely end up at a big-time program. A lot of people are thinking he'll either go to Auburn, Alabama, or Mississippi State, and if he went to Mississippi State, he'd reunite with the former coach that recruited him, Jeff Lebby, but they already have Michael Van Buren, and I don't know if he's really good enough for Bama. I don't know why Bama would go for him with the options they have, so that's why I think he's going to end up at Auburn. The Tigers need a new quarterback, as Peyton Thorne has now graduated, and both Hank Brown and Holden Gariner have entered the portal. This would be a perfect opportunity for him to start in a big-time environment, and hopefully be able to save his career. I don't know how it would fit, but my prediction is that Jackson Arnold ends up going to Auburn. So yeah, today I made predictions for 10 of the biggest names in the transfer portal, and obviously there are plenty of other big-time quarterback names I forgot, but these are the only ones I could find any sort of link or any sort of legitimacy to. But you'll have to let me know your thoughts down below. Did I completely get this wrong? Where do you think other quarterbacks are to go, and what video should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.